The briefing room fell silent as Commander Hayes slid the folder across the polished mahogany table. Lieutenant Maya Chen stood at attention, her jaw tight, watching the faces of the men who had rejected her application to their SEAL team 3 times. "Operation Sandstorm is a failure," Hayes announced, his voice hollow. "We lost 6 good men in the Kandahar Mountains. Intelligence says they're being held in a compound we can't reach. Every extraction plan has been deemed impossible." Maya's heart pounded. She knew those mountains, had studied every ridge and valley for years. Preparing for missions she was never allowed to join. "Before we begin, tell us in the comments where in the world you're watching from," Hayes continued, his weathered face etched with defeat. "We're officially calling it. The mission is lost." Maya's hand shot up before she could stop herself. "Sir, permission to speak?" The room turned to her, some faces skeptical, others outright hostile. Lieutenant Reeves, who had personally blocked her 3rd application, scoffed audibly. Hayes hesitated, then nodded. "There's a route," Maya said, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. "Through the Eastern Canyon. It's narrow, technical climbing, but it bypasses their surveillance grid entirely." Reeves leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. "We've mapped every approach, Chen. That canyon is a death trap, barely 3 feet wide in sections with a 200-foot drop." "Exactly," Maya replied, meeting his gaze. "Which is why they won't expect it. I've climbed worse. Give me a small team, light gear, and 48 hours. The silence that followed felt like an eternity. Hayes studied her with eyes that had seen too many impossible choices. "You understand what you're asking? This isn't about proving yourself. Those are real lives in that compound, and I won't send more people to die on a hunch." Maya's voice softened but remained firm. "Sir, Lieutenant Davis was my brother's best friend. Sergeant Kim trained me in hand-to-hand combat when I was fresh out of the academy. I know exactly what I'm asking, and I know exactly what I'm risking." Hayes glanced at the folder, then back at Maya. At 3:27 a.m., he made the call that would change everything. "You've got your team. But Chen, if this goes wrong..." "It won't, sir." 2 days later, Maya crouched at the canyon's entrance, her team of 3 behind her. She'd chosen carefully. Corporal Rodriguez, a medic with climbing experience. Sergeant Park, communications expert and the only one who'd supported her SEAL application. And surprisingly, Lieutenant Reeves, who'd volunteered at the last minute. "I still think this is insane," Reeves muttered, checking his harness for the 3rd time. "But if there's even a chance..." The climb began at 11:45 p.m., under a moonless sky that worked in their favor. Maya led, her fingers finding holds in the darkness that seemed impossible to her team watching below. The rock face was cold, almost alive beneath her touch, and the wind howled through the canyon like a warning. Hours passed in agonizing silence, broken only by whispered confirmations and the clink of carabiners. At 2:15 a.m., Rodriguez's foot slipped. Maya's hand shot out, catching his harness clip as rocks tumbled into the void below. "I've got you," she whispered, her arm trembling with the strain. "Stay with me." When they reached the far side at dawn, exhausted and scraped raw, the compound lay before them like a sleeping giant. Maya pulled out her scope, scanning the structure. Guards every 20 meters, rotating shifts. "But there," she pointed to a ventilation shaft on the eastern wall. "That's our entry." Reeves moved beside her, his earlier skepticism replaced by focused intensity. "Chen, I need to say something. I was wrong about you. I let my prejudice..." "Save it for after," Maya interrupted, but her tone wasn't unkind. "Right now, I need you sharp." They moved at 6:33 a.m. during the shift change when attention was divided. Maya slipped through the ventilation shaft first, dropping silently into a storage room that smelled of diesel and decay. Her heart hammered as voices echoed nearby, speaking in rapid Pashto. Park's voice crackled in her earpiece. "2 guards, main corridor heading your way." Maya pressed against the wall, breathing shallow as footsteps approached. The door swung open. In one fluid motion, she swept the guard's legs, catching him before he could cry out, and Park materialized from the shadows to secure him. They moved like ghosts through the compound, each step calculated, every breath measured. The prisoners were being held in the basement, just as intelligence had suggested. But as Maya descended the stairs, she heard something that made her blood run cold. English, spoken in desperate, hushed tones and among the voices, the unmistakable laugh of Lieutenant Davis, weak but alive. "They're planning something," Davis was saying. "I heard them talking about moving us at 8 a.m. We're running out of time." Maya checked her watch. 7:41 a.m. 19 minutes. She signaled to her team, adjusting the plan on the fly. Reeves would secure the exit route while Rodriguez prepared medical support. Maya and Park would extract the prisoners. But as they reached the cell door, alarms shattered the silence. Someone had found the guard they'd subdued. "Plan B," Maya said calmly, though her pulse raced. "We fight our way out." The lock gave way under Park's tools, and 6 exhausted, injured SEALs stumbled into the corridor. Davis's eyes widened when he saw Maya. "Chen? They sent you?" "Actually," Maya said, distributing weapons from her pack, "they sent us. Now move." The compound erupted into chaos. Maya led the group through a maze of corridors, her memory of the blueprints perfect even under pressure. Bullets sparked off the walls, but her training took over. Not the training she'd received in the official programs, but the countless hours she'd spent alone, pushing herself beyond every limit, preparing for the opportunity that seemed like it would never come. They reached the eastern wall where Reeves had secured ropes. The climb back would be brutal with injured men, but it was their only chance. As the first prisoners began ascending, enemy forces converged on their position. Maya positioned herself as rear guard, her rifle steady as she provided covering fire. "Go!" she shouted to Park. "Get them out!" But then she saw it. An RPG launcher being positioned on the compound's roof, aimed directly at the escaping team. Without hesitation, Maya broke cover, sprinting across open ground as bullets chewed the earth around her feet. She reached the building's support column and placed her last explosive charge, the one meant for emergency escape. "Maya, no!" Reeves's voice cracked through the radio. "You won't make it out!" She pressed the detonator as she ran, and the building's corner collapsed in a cascade of concrete and dust, the RPG launcher tumbling harmlessly into the rubble. The explosion gave her the seconds she needed to reach the ropes. And hands, Davis's hands, Reeves's hands, pulled her up and over the wall as the compound descended into confusion below. The climb back through the canyon was a blur of pain and determination. They moved as one unit now, supporting each other across chasms that seemed impossible, refusing to leave anyone behind. When they finally emerged on the far side at 2:47 p.m., helicopters were already descending, their rotors beating like the wings of salvation. Commander Hayes was there when they landed at base, and for the first time in her career, Maya saw him smile. Davis, being loaded onto a stretcher, grabbed her hand. "You saved us, Chen. We owe you our lives." But it was Reeves who surprised her most, stepping forward in front of the entire assembled unit. "I was wrong," he said loudly, clearly. "We all were. Maya Chen didn't just save this mission. She showed us what a true SEAL looks like. Courage isn't about who you are. It's about what you're willing to do when everything seems lost." 3 months later, Maya stood once more before the selection board. But this time, the men looking back at her wore expressions of respect. The mission everyone had declared impossible was now legend, and the female SEAL they'd rejected had become the one who'd brought their brothers home. "Welcome to the team, Lieutenant Chen," Hayes said, extending his hand. "You've more than earned it,"